All right, who can tell me why the class is called Twitter 140?
That's how many characters you get.
Thank you, John. Some people don't get that.
It could be changing though, right? Did I hear them? They're looking at 10,000 or
They
something?
are.
Well, they do that, they're going to lose me because I'm not reading anything about it writes 10,000 characters.
So we've gone into Twitter a little bit, but we're going to go a little bit deeper today and even deeper next week. So first of all, we want to start with what is Twitter? Twitter is a social networking platform, and it delivers pretty short updates, news items, and kind of quips. People that tend to be pretty successful on Twitter are really good at delivering the quips. I sadly am not one of those people. It is still currently limited to 140 characters. However, if you do publish a photo with a post, the photo takes up 23 characters. So you end up even more limited. My personal favorite way to use Twitter, and I'm not saying that this is the best way to do it, but is to use it as an RSS feed. So I personally follow quite a few folks that push out constantly everything on their websites. NPR, New York Times, Washington Post, all of these places have certain accounts that are just kind of a straight feed of everything on their website. And what?
The National Review probably has their own Twitter too. Wall Street Journal.
Fox. And then in that way you can see these headlines kind of constantly come in on your screen, and then click on something that you see is a little bit more important to you or that you'd like to read. So the Durango Herald Twitter account is actually really well done. David Buck does a great job on this. And I think I've mentioned it to you guys, but we get the Twitter referrals of a publication about probably double or triple our size, to be honest. Maybe even bigger. And a lot of that's the work that David puts into this, really making sure he gets the right hashtags, he gets some good @replies, tagging people, responding to people, retweeting stuff that our staff does. And in general, our Durango Herald account does a really great job of just updating folks with the latest news from our area. So they are a good one. And you can see that our followers on Twitter are very close to our followers on Facebook. Just to think about 1,000 difference, which is rare also. All right. Amy is also a pretty good doer on Twitter, and we'll just go over that. She uses hers predominantly for work stuff and highlights stuff that our staff does. Retweet stuff, leaves the tags in so that we get that kind of backlinking structure, and really just does a good job of getting things that are informational and things that are relevant from our different publications out there. I never really figured out what this photo was, by the way.
He's throwing beer.
He's throwing beer.
But what is he using?
Cowboy hat.
Cowboy hat.
Oh, I could not tell that's what that was.
Yeah, we're kind of like a bandana.
All right. I, sad to say, am a don't on Twitter. And that's what I mean when I say I use it mainly for an RSS feed to kind of get my news. I'm not a proficient tweeter. I don't tweet a lot, and you can go ahead and look through my account and see that I'm just not very good at tweeting. So if you want to see what not to do, check out mine. I also had a terrible thing happen where an RSS feed hooked up to my previous website that I thought was defunct when they redid their website, republished the last 5 or 10 things. That just showed up out of nowhere. Sean is amazing at tweeting. And typical photographer, he almost always has a photo. Really just does things to try and make people feel like they're where they're at. And he does it predominantly through visuals and just showing people where he's at and what he's seeing. Another one on our good list over here at the Durango Herald is Ann. And Ann's real asset is not just that she posts things that highlight the work of the staff here or that highlight her work, but she also does things to really show people that she's an expert in the area. So she retweets things on education. She makes intelligent comments on these things before she posts on them. She And you can see here, she is connected with these folks that she covers for neighbors. She does back and forth conversations with them. She uses Twitter as the social network that it was meant to be, whereas pretty much everything else I've shown you has really just been sharing stuff or telling people things, and is really great at using it as that social interaction. And that is really key because you want to be social on a social network before news breaks and before you need those people for crowdsourcing. So as journalists, we use Twitter in a couple of ways. We want to promote our stories. We also use it to brand our staff as the experts and have that authority that we talked about a little bit last time. We use it to research stories or trends to see if they're happening in our community, to develop different sources for background information on a topic we're covering, and we can also use it for crowdsourcing. And the crowdsourcing is something we should probably start doing more with our Twitter accounts here because we do have a pretty active Twitter community here. And they do respond a little bit more, I think, than Facebook when we do a call out for action. So Twitter brands us as experts, delivers our news, drives page views, and it's just another communication tool that we can use to really communicate with our audience. These are stats from 2015. We had about 58,000 sessions from Twitter in 2015. And that equated to 120,000 page views. So if you don't remember, a session is when somebody comes into our site at one visit, and they may look at one page, they may look at 13 pages, but on average, I think these folks looked at like 2.3 pages, the Twitter referrals, and so those 58,000 sessions became about 120,000 page views.
That's our website. That's
To our website, yes. And then you can see here our December sessions are obviously, and page views are quite a bit smaller because they're not the whole year. So again, on Twitter, just like on Facebook, and really any social media, you want to be a good social neighbor. You want to engage with your community and really be a part of that community before news breaks. And that's really why I was highlighting Anne. It's because if something happens in this town, Anne probably has 20 people that, if they don't know her, feel like they do through her Twitter interactions, because she has kind of become a part of their daily lives through doing that. And those are the people that will talk to you when crazy news happens. And particularly on kind of a heartbeat like education, it's good to develop those sources before news happens. Share stuff, don't broadcast. Those RSS feeds, they're broadcasting. They're just sending stuff out. They're not being social. You want to share stuff with your community, be a part of the community, and react if somebody says something. You also want to follow people in the area. That helps build your brand, build your audience. There's a couple different ways to do that. Search.twitter.com and Twello.com are two where you can go and you can just type in like Durango, or you can type in Durango football, and then find people that have those interests or are in the area. Then we'll go over what's appropriate on Twitter. And again, kind of like last week's social media lesson, don't be dumb, really rules a day. So this is Colonel Tribune. Colonel Tribune is a fictional gentleman that the Chicago Tribune created when they first got on Twitter. Colonel Tribune is probably from the early 1900s, or sorry, late 1900s, early 20th century. I did that wrong. The 20th century, sorry. He, although lately has a less tone than he used to, you can see by his outfit, he used to do a lot of things where he'd be like, top of the day to you. Make sure you dress in your warmest hat. It's chilly out there. And had a lot more tone. I think they've hired somebody else to play Colonel Tribune in the last few years, and he plays a lot more straight. But he was one of the first Twitter accounts to really take into account tone and be a little bit more entertaining about news. So here's one today that's a little bit more friendly. So, you can be funny, you can be interesting, you can be a personality on Twitter. Don't cross the line, obviously, into taking political stands and whatnot, and keep that tone. I personally am not funny in 140 characters. I'm not really funny in long form either. So I do suggest that you know your limits.
But I would suspect that you don't have to be funny every time. I mean, it's just that if you every once in a while come up with a clever quip, people will remember that.
Jay Libby's somebody who could probably do that regularly.
Yeah.
I mean, you're good at those kind of one-liners. And yeah, it doesn't have to be constant. I'm never good at a one-liner. I'll say something that I think is funny, and people are like, wah, wah. But I mean, just, yeah, know your audience and know who you are. You know, if you're Peter covering politics, probably not the best to be flippant.
I think he'd be the best.
He is pretty clever. But you know, Katie, if she starts to beef up her Twitter account for Southwest Life, or not Southwest, yeah, then you know that's an area where she could be a lot more colloquial, a lot more highlighting things that get at the heart of what's happening in the community, and really dive in there.
And if you're advancing a story, know what the story is. If it's about crime or sex assault, don't be funny.
Exactly.
Do
Exactly.
it the same way you would a cut line or whatever. You know, if it's a cool story like Snowdown or something, you can have fun. But if a girl was assaulted, then don't be fun. Just
And
lay
for
it out
example,
there.
I didn't put it in this presentation, but Jonathan was live tweeting the beer polar plunge or something. And at some point he wrote something like, someone is actually eating a gummy worm off the floor. And I thought that was a perfect tweet. It's a little flippant. It puts you right there. You know exactly what's going on at Snowdown. You don't have to say they're wasting, they're eating food off the floor. It's all just there. Standards for what should be on your Twitter page. Your real name.
Tweet, not Twitter.
Your real name. A real photo of you. As a representative of the paper, you need to be authentic. A cover photo. If you guys saw Anne's, she did not have a cover photo. That's one way I beat her on Twitter. I do have a cover photo. Your position at Valentine and the brand you represent. So if you're Brandon, you want to say editor of Adventure Pro. If you're Mark, you want to say news editor?
Yes.
News editor of, gosh, are you news editor of all 3 pubs or is it just the Herald? Okay. And then if you cover a topic that's a little bit touchy, you should put in there that retweets are not endorsements. So that is really important for somebody like Peter. Often it's important for sports because, it's particularly small town sports, people can get a little bit dicey about if you retweet all Bayfield stuff and not Ignacio's and they like Bayfield better.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I'm sure. So we'll go ahead and pass around. I have some guidelines for you guys, and again, they kind of cover the basic don't be dumb, but we'll go over them. And first and foremost, you are a journalist, no matter what the forum is, whether the forum is Facebook, Snapchat, long-form magazine writing, a cop's brief. You are a journalist, and please follow our journalistic integrity. Always be transparent. Always tell people you're a journalist. Always be very, very, very cautious with children on social media. Verify everything. I actually think this is the second time I'm going over this with you guys. But, and then, you know, unless you're live tweeting something, 1 out of 3 of your tweets should link back to our website. Because while we are trying to brand ourselves as an expert, we're also trying to drive page views, which is how we make money. And 1 out of 3, you know, I'm not going to go through and count your tweets. But if I see that you have 20 tweets talking about stories and none of them go to our website, we might have to have a little conversation. Always be as accurate and as clear as you can. And like Facebook, manage your friends and your comments. You know, if somebody's dropping the F-bomb all the time, then you need to regulate that. So we're going to just dive into, a lot of people know more about Twitter, so if this is all review for you, please just roll with it. We're going to talk about how to get an RSS feed directly into Twitter, talk about URL shorteners, the ethics of deleting things, what @replies, retweets, and hashtags and likes are, and then a tiny bit about TweetDeck. So an RSS feed stands for Rich Site Summary, and it's a format for delivering that regularly changing web content. So every time there's a new story, it goes out. And like I said, this is how I use it. I mainly follow folks that do this constantly. You can set up feeds to deliver your Twitter account specifically. This is going to be bigger probably later in the year as we get into blogging, because you can set it up where if you have a blog page, your RSS feed delivers that blog directly to your Twitter feed. Deliver it, dlvr.it is a really good RSS system. And it's not really set up well to do these RSS feeds with our current website, but it's getting better with our new website, which we're starting to talk about a lot more now. A URL shortener is where you take that really long URL that is durangoherald.com/pbscss// news/sports01 Bayfield beats Ignacio. And so you take that long URL, you go to a place like bit.ly.com, and you paste it in, and it comes up with a very, very short URL for that link. So this is bit.ly. It loads. We'll go to the Herald and click on a very long URL, and I'll just walk you through how it works. My least favorite story of the day.
Does that shortened URL only work on Twitter?
Nope, it works everywhere. So if you don't want to email somebody a super long URL, you can use, and there's plenty of other ones out there. Bitly is my favorite. So you can see that really long URL turned into this shorty guy here. And so you can just paste that in. We are working on getting a custom URL shortener. We looked into dh.co. $50,000. American. So we're not going to do that one. But hopefully we will get something that's a little bit more branded for us.
Why does that matter?
It's just easier to use for people to, and they'll type it in. My favorite URL shortener ever was Mitt Romney, and his was mi.tt. This is a screenshot from TweetDeck, and you can see kind of how these like long URLs look kind of crappy versus a short URL just looks cleaner coming into the feed. Here's another shorty one. All right, hashtags, if we don't know, they're what we used to be called the pound sign. Apparently we don't call them that anymore. And a hashtag is either used kind of as a way to parse traffic on Twitter, or it's often used to be sarcastic, funny, or to add emphasis. So with Snowdown, we use the hashtag Snowdown2016. So what that becomes is basically a hyperlink, and anyone can click on that and go and see all of the posts that have that hashtag. And so that's actually what we pulled into the Twitter feed, was that group of our page, everybody who would use that hashtag. You can do hashtag, there's a lot of hashtags out there. Now, to be sarcastic or funny or add emphasis, I posted a picture of my mom in front of the pot shop the other day because she wanted to go to the pot shop. And, I put a hashtag on it that said it wasn't like this in the 70s. And so that's me trying. You guys can see I'm not funny.
That's a really long hashtag.
Again, I'm not great at this. So,
Hashtag not the 70s.
and there we go. So in that way, the more concise, the better. Our copying team hopefully can keep us succinct. And it's also good to search for things that we want to crowdsource. So let's say that we are looking for a picture of the woman who broke the window. Searching hashtag Snowdown, hashtag Snowdown 2016, hashtag Durango for that time frame can help us maybe identify who those folks are.
Aren't there gonna be like a gazillion, people using hashtag Snowdown?
No, they're no.
Because aren't they like tweeting their
Constantly?
friends? Yeah, other people are
No.
using those, aren't they?
Not Durango.
No,
I would think that.
Actually, the reason we went with Snowdown 2016 because there is some video game called Snowdown,
Right.
and so that's why we branded Snowdown 2016, and actually pretty much everybody in town picked that up because it's unique. Dorado magazine does hashtag MyDorado because it's not used for anything else. So if you're doing something that's going to be over time, it's good to research it to see if it's being used for anything else.
Yeah, that's what I.
In general, you can kind of guess and be okay with it. There's a decent number of hashtag Durango. Here's a look at some stuff that was pulled up for hashtag Animus River. So you can just kind of see how that works.
Yeah, right after this, in August when the spill was going on, that hashtag and the Gold King were really popular. Like you could, I had a list of those, and there were a lot of people on them from all over the country. I mean, a lot of people tweeting with those hashtags. So it was an interesting way to keep up with people everywhere about that.
And sometimes with those big things in news, it is kind of fun. Sometimes I bring in the top 5 most interesting tweets. Sometimes, and I don't think we do it here ever, but if there's a story that's really, really hard to source, sometimes some papers are willing to crowdsource it by Twitter handles, and you can find that stuff by hashtags. And then there's different hashtags that trend. This was trending when I made this Oscar So White, because nobody of any color was pretty much nominated for an Oscar. And so you search that, and it's just a constant news feed of people with that, using that hashtag. Hashtags can be funny. Again, I'm not very good at it. This was an Instagram that Sean did, actually, and his hashtag was not following the rules because the shadow's going the other way. I thought it was funny. Moving on. At reply. So an at reply is a public reply to a tweet. So it includes everyone that's tagged at the tweet. So let's say Mark posts a tweet, and he says, at Michael and at David, we're so drunk at El Rancho this weekend, right? I don't know why I just picked on you guys, but I did. It's got to be Michael every time. So let's say I hit an at reply to that tweet, so it's going to tag all three of you in that. And then I say, I saw them there, and none of them were drunk. Whatever.
It's just Michael.
Oh. And I could edit people out. I could take everybody out except for Mark and just do an at reply with him. The biggest thing for an at reply is to remember that one is public. Everybody can see it. And two, it's typically used to kind of forward a conversation or to ask a question. We'll get them on the Durango Herald. Sometimes they're snarky. Sometimes they're real questions. We respond when we can. Now, they're also used to tag someone. So, like I was saying, Mark says, at Michael and at David were at breakfast this weekend. So he uses the at and then their Twitter handle to tag them in that post. Ours is at Durango Herald. That tags us up. And at replies do show up in your notifications tab, both on Twitter and on TweetDeck. Here's just a couple different examples. Here's somebody who tagged us. We did that story about olives. So they did and the price of olive oil, or olive oil shortage, right? That was a business story. And they did an at reply that's great for their business. We've got it cheap down here. Come check it out. We did this one with a list of Christmas services, and somebody says, hey, we missed one. Check it out. So those are just good ways to kind of converse and be social and go back and forth.
Do you think those photos are functional?
I do. They normally show up a bit bigger. These screenshots are kind of small. DM is a hip term for a direct message, or not so hip. A direct message goes directly to the user, so it's not public. So it's used a little bit differently than an at reply. However, again, I caution you that anything online can be made public, so don't go cursing somebody out. If you heart something, it means you like it. Everybody can see what you like and what you don't like. So again, I would caution away from going through and liking everything Bernie Sanders posts, no matter how much you like the tone of his voice.
But not
If you like something, just retweet it. Don't use like.
I personally only use the like thing if I'm trying to be like, hey, I saw that. So typically if friends do something, then I'll go and like the tweet. But
See, I hit the like if I liked it. If I read it and it made me go forward and read the story,
that's
then you
good.
get a like.
The like is a little less,
I'm always
Social.
confused whether if somebody posts a depressing story, I don't know if I should
like it.
Yeah, I know, there's always that thing, what are you, if it's like sex abuse, should you be liking it?
Yeah, exactly.
But I
It's a
figure
good article about
it's a good
some
article.
horrific thing, so.
So they get a like.
There should be an empathy button.
That's great.
There you go.
We do encourage that you follow and promote coworkers' work. I'll send out a list of everybody's username and handle so you can follow everybody. And really try to promote good work and relevant stories when you see it. That's something I'm not very good at, and I really personally need to get better at it.
Can you use emoticons?
You can use, well, yeah. Yeah, there's some GIFs in there too. And,
That's special.
I really enjoyed your it's GIF.
What?
2 years ago, the guy that made them came out and said they're GIF.
Named after the peanut butter.
I did.
Yeah, he did.
He did, deliberately.
So Katie's story on the couples that have survived for a gazillion years, I love that story. I should have tweeted that. So we all need to get better about cross-promoting folks' work when we like it. And I'm not saying all the time, but when there's something that is particularly well done. Really, and it's another one that Ann does really well, is promote coworkers' work. And again, nothing on a social network is truly private. So what I'm working on, and I filed a help ticket for it to get it built, is a Twitter page on the website that has everybody's picture, everybody who has a work Twitter account. A lot of you folks in here, this room don't, so that is what it is. But a Twitter page that'll have everybody's face and their Twitter handle and a sentence about them. This is really good for sports, to get your guys' face out there a little bit more. And then we'll also have a Twitter widget that pulls in everything with that Durango Herald on it. I will say our staff rules are to have your real picture on there. It's just a transparency issue, particularly for editors. So moving forward, follow for editors. Follow other staff members. Those of you in the copy desk have already taken it over and are doing quite a good job on taking care of the Herald Twitter account on nights and weekends. And then we have some standards built into our kind of rules for next year. Staff needs to tweet at least once from each assignment moving forward. Very few of you, just you two, right, are out in the field. Are you sometimes? From each assignment, more in the case of breaking news. News reporters will live tweet at least one event a month. Sports, this is actually less than you guys currently do right now, but tweet at least once from each assignment. More often with games, really try to do kind of a halftime and an end score. I know you guys pretty much always get that end score on there, but not always a halftime score. And, oh really? Sorry, I must miss them then. And then we didn't have live tweet requirements for you guys because you do it just so fluidly right now that it's really just the status quo. So next week, we're going to drill in. We're going to look at TweetDeck. Most of you should have downloaded TweetDeck so far. I'm going to go over a few things, but really Amy, who is the queen of setting up lists in TweetDeck and using them really to the advantage of parsing out news, is going to dive into how to use lists.